Hello, hello. How are you all? Don't leave, don't leave. Come back, come back. Give us a chance. I'm Laura McCracken. I'm responsible for commerce and payments at Accenture, and it is my great pleasure to moderate the next panel that we're going to be having. I have a wonderful group of 7 people who are going to help me through this discussion. Just to tell you about what we're going to be talking about. The world of commerce is evolving really rapidly. It's a $30 trillion industry. At the moment, 75% is still bricks and mortar retail, but that's changing rapidly into e-commerce, mobile commerce, marketplaces, social commerce, super apps, and indeed the metaverse. So the world of commerce is shifting rapidly, which gives us in the payments industry lots of room for innovation. And we are trying our best to keep up with the pace of change. And today we're actually going to talk from the reverse side, that how can payments help these merchants to boost their growth. So the panelists I have today, we've got, and I'll ask each of you to come up as I call your name. So Matteo Gamba, who is the product group lead at Wayfair for payments. We have Zach Hemmant-Low, who's the SVP of Revenue at THG Ingenuity. Welcome, Zach. We've got Andrew Lawrence, who's the head of Gateway Transformation at Barclaycard Payments. Daniel Holden, the CEO of Trust Payments. Michael Lane, VP of Sales at Token. And last but not least, Erik van Thielen from AAA. Wonderful. Okay, so let's just get started with some introductions, starting with you, Matteo.
Yep. Thanks for having us. Matteo, work for Wayfair. Wayfair is a large enterprise merchant selling furniture and houseware, primarily US-based, but also available in Canada, UK, Germany, and Ireland. It's around 13 billion in GMV, so meaningful size for e-commerce. My team handles payments and fraud, so we look at both sides of the experience. And really, our goal is to make sure that payments doesn't become a blocker to the experience, but also that we facilitate customers and we give them one more way to complete their purchase.
Great. Zach?
So Zach Hemmant-Low, SVP of Revenue for THG Ingenuity. THG is the Hut Group. So we are a conglomerate of 56 e-commerce businesses. We do about £2.5 billion of revenue. Ingenuity is the technology arm, which we are now licensing out to third-party businesses like Homebase, Matalan, All Beauty.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Great to be here. Andrew Lawrence. I lead our Gateway Transformation team in Barclaycard Payments. Gateway is one part of our business, of course, with commercial cards and acquiring, and of course we're bolted onto Barclays Group as well, which obviously, as everyone will be aware, has a global presence.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm Daniel Holden. I'm the Group CEO for Trust Payments. We're a very fast-growing fintech business, clearly with a payments core, but expanding very rapidly into converged commerce, value-added services, ePOS, and other systems for retailers. About 500 people in and around mainly the UK and Europe, and processing about £1 billion a month now, growing about 80-90%, and hopefully more next year. So, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Lane. I'm VP of Sales here at Token. Token is account-to-account payment infrastructure company powered by open banking and really built for the payments industry. So today I am the voice of open banking.
I'm Erik van Thielen. I'm heading partnerships at AAA. So we are a licensed crypto payment gateway, licensed in Singapore, EU, and the US. We help mainly Web2 businesses seamlessly accept digital currency payments, whereby they do so volatility-free, T+1 bank settlement in fiat, and obviously in full compliance.
Excellent. Okay, great. And so the cool thing about this panel is we've really got a nice range. So starting with, we've got kind of the voice of retail on this side of the house with Matteo and Zach. Matteo being at Wayfair, kind of representing e-commerce and marketplaces. Zach kind of representing e-commerce and direct-to-consumer solutions. Then we've got the voice of payments in the middle. We've got Andrew and Daniel. Andrew really representing payments and the gateway experience. Daniel representing payments, trust. No, I was going to say trust. It was definitely trust, data, and loyalty. And then we have open banking represented by Michael and crypto represented by Erik. So it's a really nice, diverse panel. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. And let's start off with the voice of retail. So Matteo, would you like to give us 3 pieces of advice on how to really create a seamless paying solution for Wayfair customers?
Yeah. So I think first of all is understanding who your customers are. Not every single customer is alike, and making sure that you understand that from a geographical perspective, but also from the phase of a customer life cycle. Someone that comes from the first time is not the same after 2-3 purchases. So really thinking about how can you customize and adjust the payment experience for a customer depending on where they come from and how long have they been with the company. Then thinking about good and bad actors, you want to make sure that you have a smooth experience, but not too smooth. Otherwise, the bad guys might actually go through, and
friction.
That might have an impact for the good ones. And last but not least, if you want to ensure that you have a good experience, you also need to build a good infrastructure from a technology perspective. And you need to be able to build a good interface yourself, but also have strong partners that can support the journey. So I don't think nowadays e-commerce merchants are going to be able to do everything on their own. So it's really understanding who are the right partners at a given point in time to fulfill a given goal and to really offer the best possible experience to your users.
Excellent. And by the way, raise your hand if you shopped at Wayfair. Yeah.
Good.
I was addicted to Wayfair, by the way, during the whole pandemic. I think I furnished my entire house with stuff from Wayfair. So I'm really thankful to you. And Wayfair is a marketplace. Are there any particularities with regard to marketplace payments?
So Wayfair is also a peculiar marketplace. We do drop shipping, so we work with around 20,000 suppliers from all over the world, from countries like China, India, Poland, Spain, and so on. But we are directly the merchant of record, so we don't have to handle the funds end-to-end. A transaction that is sold, in order that is sold to the customer, doesn't necessarily have to go to the supplier. But still is something where we need to handle both pay-ins and payouts. So I think what is important is to make sure that our customers understand how they are paying, who is the merchant of record, who they have a relationship with. And in some cases, for example, we work with third-party financing lenders, and their relationship is also between the lender and the customer itself. So I think really making sure that this broad variety of players is clearly presented to the customer at the right time. You don't necessarily need to show it earlier on, but it's important to build that trust as well, to know who is powering the payment experience. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Matteo. Big job. And Zach, I mean, I can always count on Zach for some disagreement. Would you want to add anything to that? Or?
I don't think there's much to disagree to there, fortunately for now anyway.
Great. And so, Zach, tell us a little bit about direct-to-consumer payments. Yeah. So what do you have to keep in mind when you're advising your clients on solutions?
Yes, so we're fortunate, right? So we've been around for 18 years doing e-commerce, and we now own 56 global businesses, which means we've worked with pretty much most payment providers in most locales. So as customers we start working with, we're able to inform them and give them advice from having been there and done that. the thing that we talk about with our customers now is kind of starting customer first, right? And thinking of what are my customers most familiar with? What are my customers going to be most comfortable with? And ultimately, which payment providers do I need, or which services do I need to have in order to make sure that that process is as seamless as possible for my end consumer? So what we are working with our customers on is to look at, okay, internationally, do we have different variants of type of payment providers? Do we have different capabilities versus different offerings depending on where we are and ultimately who we are, right? So we have some businesses like a Homebase or a Matalan versus a Cult Beauty or Look Fantastic who have pretty different customer demographics. And with that, it enables us to think about, okay, we know Cult Beauty and Matalan Cult Beauty and Look Fantastic are very heavy in the BNPL space because of the kind of customer demographic. The Homebases of the world, slightly higher AOVs, they may start looking at things like kind of longer term finance. So it's just really about giving the customers the choice that they need.
Awesome. And do you work across multiple channels as well?
Yeah.
That's a wide range of retailers you're working with.
Yeah, it's significant. And I think anyone that knows the Hut Group, we've been predominantly e-commerce. And over the last 2 years since launching Ingenuity, we've moved into retail specifically. So looking at both connecting customer data in-store and online, but also connecting the payment channels in-store and online as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And moving to our payments expert, Andrew. I know Barclaycard does a plethora of research. Could you share any consumer insights with us on the paying experience?
Yeah, sure. There's a myriad of research out there as ever, and I guess the point perhaps I'd land here is that it's important to take full account of that as a merchant, right? Because it is so insightful, and don't get distracted perhaps by what might be the big point of the day, right? Take alternative payment methods at the minute. Of course, it's crucial that you've got the right mix there available on that payment journey to go from the top end of the funnel down to maximizing your sales at the bottom. But actually, what the research tells us is that it's still single-digit percentages in terms of the importance of that in getting a customer to that end point in the sale. Actually, 80% of people drop out, as we know, often because there's some window shopping in there. But actually, of those that are left, once you strip that out, 80%, it's down to transparency. They're getting to the end of that journey, and perhaps there's a delivery charge in there, or there's a VAT charge, and there's another charge, and folks are off. The other big number that's in there as well, and it's about 20% or so of customers that get to that stage, is where you have to enter more details than really you need to. It's just not seamless. It's not efficient. We sort of said it already. And often it's maybe having to complete details to proceed with an account rather than just a guest checkout. That's another really key area that comes out in the research. And that's not to say, of course, we've got the sort of voice of loyalty on this panel as well today, but it's important, of course, at the same time to get the balance right, because, of course, you've got to capture some of that information if you want to take advantage of tokenization or offer some loyalty services. So as ever, it's a delicate balance, particularly when you think about the fraud aspects to that as well. And maybe lastly, the other reason, again, it's another double-digit percentage reason, I think about 20%, is actually folks get to the end and they've been unclear on the journey around the delivery option or the fulfillment option, and then that's actually the big fallout. So in those three, you've got about 80% of the reason. Once you strip out those that are just window shopping, get the basics right. I think that is so key. Yes, consider all of the other angles, but get the basics of your journey right.
Yeah. And again, what was the number you said in terms of the number of people that drop out at point of checkout?
So it's about 80% in some of the research that we see.
80%.
Up to 80%, yeah. It depends, of course, segment, sector, and so on. But if you take a broad brush view, it's big, right?
And sometimes it's because I'm on the train and I don't have my credit card with me, and it doesn't give me another option. It's like you have to have your credit card or nothing. What do you advise merchants to try to improve that loss of shopping cart abandonment?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think to some degree you've always got to accept that it'll be there, right? Because I think some people are comparing, solutions maybe across different websites, right? It's an easy place just to go and pop something to look back at. But you've got to, as I say, take advantage of the research that is out there and work with your partners, right? I think that's one of the great things about many folks here on the panel today, right? There are people there that can go and have a conversation, with you and bring in different perspectives to your business.
Yeah, and as each of you guys said, it's complex and it's different for every type of retailer: size, location, geography, channels, all that stuff. So anyway, again, thank you very much, Andrew. And Daniel, I know that trust payments is at the heart of data and loyalty. So what kind of advice would you give to retailers to boost sales?
Well, I think the first thing to say is, the reality is that the e-commerce world and the physical world is now not just interconnected, but dependent on each other and interdependent on each other. And I think, the best and most successful retailers are really realizing this. I mean, clearly there are pure play e-commerce players out there, and, Wayfair is clearly one of them. But most businesses, as you said in your introduction, Laura, are dependent on as much physical sales as on e-commerce sales. And actually the only reason and the only way of actually bringing the experience together is through data. And I'm sure you've all ordered a coffee and then collected it in the coffee shop, or a juice, or your lunch, etc. And it's been driven, I guess, partly through COVID, where contactless, not just payments, but contactless solutions are the majority of the desire or the desired effect for retailers. And I think joining those two worlds together is very, very critical to be successful in retail nowadays. And actually, when you move that forward, it's not just about consumer demand. Consumers want, obviously, convenience, etc. They want contactless solutions, etc. But it's also, if you turn the other way around and look at the supply chain, because clearly consumers want more transparency of both ethical issues. If it's a fast food environment, they want where is the food from? Does it have air miles? Is there ethical food issues, etc.? And you can only really do that and provide that transparency to the consumer if you have the supply chain linked to data sources. So I think it's that end-to-end solution of actually building these connected points. In our world, that we call that converged commerce, of course, but it's a more open sourced relationship that you're having with ultimately the merchants. Payments is clearly a really fundamental part, and that's, I guess, why it's so exciting of all of us connected to, in some way, the payments world, because these converged markets happen at the point of the payment, or related to the point of the payment. And that's why the resurgence or the importance of payments is so valuable.
Yeah. How far away the idea of a retailer knowing me across all channels, being really omni-channel, as you mentioned, how far away are we before we actually have the data that's connecting me across my entire journey?
Well, I think that's the friction that people are going through in this entire digitization of systems and processes and things, and not everyone is there, clearly. But as I say, the industries that have led this have really been about fast transactional goods, either in the food sector. Obviously, we've had this big resurgence through COVID for ordering online or ordering on your mobile, and physically being there, right? Well, actually, is that a physical sale or is that an e-commerce sale? It doesn't really matter what it is. The consumer doesn't think in these disconnected ways. The consumer thinks it's commerce, right? Yeah. And I don't want to go as far as being quoted to say e-commerce is dead. That's clearly nonsense. But the reality is the industry's got to wake up to not having these channel-led silos. Yeah. And as I say, are we there yet? Clearly not. We're at the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, awesome. Good. And now let's switch directions a little bit and talk about open banking. So, Michael, first of all, open banking, we always talk about it. It's more like a UK thing. Account-to-account payments has been happening across Europe for a long time, right? So where are you seeing across Europe, where do you see the biggest take-up and the biggest usage of account-to-account payments?
Yeah, good question. So, and I think they are different, right? Account-to-account payments and open banking account-to-account payments are different things. And for sure, across Europe, people have been using account-to-account payments for years, if not decades. You look at something like Ideal in the Netherlands, has always been a great success. But if we focus on the open banking side of things, then the UK has always been the leader. It's the leader because it needed to become PSD2 compliant long before the rest of Europe. The stability of the APIs, therefore, was much better, and there was so much fragmentation across Europe because really there were standards, but everyone had their own version of the standard. So it was a bit of a spaghetti mess. But I think these are now legacy issues, right? Mm-hmm. So if we were on stage 3 years ago talking about this, for sure the stability was terrible, payments were failing, and really it was a data play, right? So the early open banking use cases were all about data, and I'm sure many of us here will have at some point downloaded a personal finance manager application where we added our bank accounts and we saw how much we spent on groceries and how much we spent on other stuff. And we looked at that and it was great. And we looked at it every day for about 2 weeks and then we probably never looked at it again. So, payments really is the leader of open banking. And where we're seeing the real uptake is certainly the UK, and then Germany and the Netherlands, certainly Poland and the rest of the Baltics and the Nordics as well. And really what we've seen, certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, is the stability of those APIs are there now to support payment rails, whereas before they weren't. The expectation is, as many people have said, I get to the checkout, I select a payment method, and it needs to work. So 2 years, 3 years ago, that wasn't there. Today it is. And like with most, and let's call it an alternative payment method, right? Like with most alternative payment methods, you've always seen early adoption in the higher risk sectors, so gambling, Forex, funding a wallet. Then we really moved to loading a credit card or repaying a credit card. So today, 1 in 4 credit cards in the UK can be repaid using open banking. And now what we're starting to see is it really come into the traditional world of e-commerce and even retail. And many of the frailties of PSD2, so for those of you not familiar, when PSD2 was written, there was no way to refund the transaction. Clearly, if you're in traditional e-commerce, that's a big part of your business. That's a big part of your customer experience. So these problems have now been resolved. So we're now starting to see, and certainly by the end of this year, you'll start to see real high street retail start to adopt this, predominantly online. But in France, we're already seeing, so Castorama, which is the B&Q of France, you can go in store and you can now purchase goods using open banking. So we're starting to see retail take effect, and we're also starting to see some of the big e-commerce players really now start to adopt account-to-account payments. So there's this huge shift from traditional payments to APMs, depending on what you read and what you look at. In the next 3 to 5 years, 70% of the global market could be alternative payment methods. So we really believe that now is the time to kind of embrace and adopt this, bring it to market, along with the likes of variable recurring payments, which in the UK again is leading, not there yet, but leading the way, and then dynamic recurring payments in Europe. Mm-hmm. This starts to give you that one-click checkout experience, which we all want. So UK is still leading. The rest of Europe is catching up. The technology is really coming on board, so it can really sit alongside comfortably traditional card payments. And there's so many benefits of account-to-account over all the other alternative payment methods that likely clutter checkouts. Sorry, that was a lot.
Do you have one example for me of an e-commerce retailer who is now accepting open banking?
Yeah, sure. So I think the poster child in the UK was the HMRC, so repaying of tax.
Yeah, isn't that great? We can now pay our taxes.
I mean, it's a good use case, but a terrible use case, because no one actually wants to repay their tax. We've talked about credit cards. I won't mention names, but we're going to see some real high street headline retailers start to adopt open banking this year. Recently, there's been Topps Tiles, which is point of sale for open banking, and we're seeing more and more brands crop up. So I think there were legacy issues which stopped traditional retail. Those have now been thought through, and those have now been solved, and now the retail market is really starting to adopt.
Awesome. Now, I know that still the schemes are leading the way at the moment in terms of people use cards. But are there any opinions on the panel from anyone about open banking?
We did some discovery, I think. You're right, like there have been legacy issues that are being solved. The way we are trying to look at it is like from a customer perspective. is there demand for a given payment method. I think that's where we are not yet there. Also because there has to be some kind of initial use cases that help with the education from the merchant side, from the provider side, but even
MRC.
like from the banks as well. I think it's important for the main banks to push for the adoption. And I don't know if they have the incentive to do that because they're going to be probably missing out on some revenue as well.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting point, and it's interesting that the thought process is that the banks should push adoption, and I agree there's currently little incentive for the banks to push. But I think, and I think certainly many people have mentioned this before, the major benefits of open banking are for the merchant. So how do you get the customer, the consumer, your customer, to adopt this payment method? And I think if you look at history and you look at how other very, very well-known payment methods have kind of, taken the market by storm, it was basically because the merchant was suggesting to their customer that this is how we would like you to pay because potentially there's benefits there. So I totally agree with what you're saying. There needs to be an education piece. Should that be the merchant? Should that be the bank? Should it be companies like ourselves? And I think that's relatively easy to overcome as long as, from a merchant perspective, you see the benefits of it and are prepared to push. Not everybody, because I think some of the guys have said certain demographics suit this, certain demographics suit other things. But if you have that data on your customer base, I think there are customers that you can funnel down that route to take any payment method that you kind of want to push.
So consumer demand will push as well in that direction, particularly in the future, I think, as well as we look at digital wallets.
Yep.
I know we're just tying it more into that, but in terms of account-to-account transfers, as part of that, will be a key enabler in the future, and the trust is key.
And the irony is that UK market is actually quite tied traditionally to cards, actually, but it is, as you say, very, very innovative in terms of open banking and payments. So you've got this dichotomy really that's shaping the industry, and it's also, I think, quite generationally different. I mean, the demographic of use cases is definitely for younger people that are more open to the adoption of open banking, etc. And as Mike says, it's not just about the account-to-account payment methods. Actually, the use case for open banking is much, 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 much wider, and actually goes into these things like fraud detection and other safety measures as well, and indeed, of course, data and loyalty solutions as well. So I think it's a much, much broader debate that's happening.
Yeah, and when you talk about demographics, I want to jump over into crypto for a moment. And before I ask you, Erik, to comment on this, can we have a raise of hands? I see a nice, young, good-looking audience here. Raise your hand if you have a crypto wallet. What do we see? Maybe like a third of the audience?
More.
About a third of them, yeah. The panel, maybe a third as well. So I'm actually really bullish. I'm really quite, I'm quite excited about not only crypto but NFTs and the metaverse, and because I do think that this is a direction of travel, and we're seeing huge growth in it. So I'd love to hear from your standpoint. When are we going to get crypto accepted by merchants?
I mean, 1/3 of the audience has a crypto wallet. So I'll ask a question before I move to. I mean, there is 420 million people worldwide who hold crypto today. Whether they get paid in crypto, whether they invested in crypto. I mean, that's the size of the US and Canada combined, population-wise. 420 million crypto users. This is PayPal user base, right? There's one big difference. I mean, we're talking about open banking, cards, wallets. They're all different doors to the same wallet, bank account, right? So with crypto, there is no overlap. Now, if I'm asking, so the half of the audience here has crypto, 1/3 here, I guess that you don't hold and invest in crypto just for the sake of, I have crypto, right? At some point, you're hoping.
To use it.
I mean, you want to build, to win, to build wealth, you want to use it. To use it, you still have to convert it back to fiat. And what do you do with money? You don't keep it like grandpa under the bed. No, you spend it, right? It's not like investing in your house that you'll be living in. It's just something you're building wealth, converting back to fiat, and pay for stuff. Now that's a long UX, not seamless, not convenient. Well, so you've got millions of these guys who've got crypto. Some of them got rich with that. Then in other parts of the world, and that is growing. Another leg of our business is crypto payout. So we're paying freelancers, content creators, and that is exponentially growing today. All of these people need to pay with their crypto. It's difficult. Most merchants today do not accept crypto. However, it's a reality still. So on our network, we see today, if I want to go on my honeymoon, I could pay for my luxury travel. Now, when I get divorced, I can pay for my lawyer in crypto. So professional services, we all have that. We see that every day. So yeah, it's a reality. More and more merchants either want to test, investigate, is there something there for me in terms of growing my business? Others in more obvious segments, luxury, video gaming, travel, etc., are seeing demand from their customers. So we're solving a problem. Some merchants want, some customers are asking for crypto payments, but it's crypto. Well, it's dangerous. Well, I'm afraid. Volatility, technology, compliance. It is what people are looking for. It has started already, and we've got, I don't know, big brands like Farfetch, and I won't name all, but it's there. It's a reality. We're enabling. We come from payments. I invested quite recently in crypto. So we are aware about marketplace needs, e-commerce players, what UX, it has to be seamless, it has to be agnostic. You have to provide instant notifications to the merchant so they can take the decision to ship the goods, top up a wallet. It's all across the board. And this is what we do. So we solve the UX aspects, because a payment made by crypto is not as seamless as you would think. This is what we're changing. We're making it e-commerce friendly in terms of how fast a merchant is informed, how fast he's being settled in fiat on his bank account. So basically accepting crypto without touching crypto. And that is seeing more and more adoption. And this is sticky. It allows you to tap into a wallet that does not overlap with others and acquire new customers. So in a nutshell, I think I've said it all.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah,
Open
that's
for
awesome.
questions.
Yeah, I think the future is, we talk a lot about the metaverse and blockchain, but really Web3 is the integration of blockchain and metaverse. So it's a whole new way of shopping, and that opens up the world to more digital currencies, more NFTs, more ways of exchanging value via blockchain in Web3. So are you already thinking towards that? It's a futuristic thing, but is your company already thinking towards the Web3 angle?
I mean, what we do is we convert, right?
Yeah, you're
accept
the
payments.
middleman.
Correct. And now, where do we bridge? So we're enabling Web2 businesses. And I mean, not only us,
Yeah.
the whole crypto payment providers,
Okay.
gateways. We're enabling Web2 businesses to accept crypto payments without touching them. But on the other side of things, you said it well. I mean, all of these big luxury groups, etc., are going for metaverse, NFTs, in gaming. All of these metaverse companies, Web3 in general, they have one problem: they get paid in crypto, but they still have to pay rents, to pay for professional services. So here we're talking about treasury management, B2B business payments.
Right.
It's still the same flow. I'm accepting crypto to enable you, Web3 company, settle your suppliers in fiat. Because at the end, you still live in the real world. You might be doing a metaverse, but so we've got all of these use cases covered. So enabling Web2 accept crypto, and enable Web3 pay in fiat. Big issue for them.
I have a question for Erik,
Yes.
actually. So how much roughly do you think are crypto payments for, let's call it, real world use cases, let's say that, and how much of it are for investment purposes, do you think, currently?
It very much depends on where you are in the world, what you do. Obviously, yes, if you're looking at UK, France, Germany, Spain, etc., people owning crypto are the ones who are now settling in Dubai or have settled in Portugal, etc., have invested to create wealth, right? But you wouldn't, I don't know how visible it's to you that in the Philippines, from the Philippines to Argentina, Chile, Brazil, people want to prefer to get paid in crypto, just as a safe haven to escape the volatility of their own currencies. I mean, we might have philosophical discussions on that. However, more and more people want to be paid in USDC. Is the way for the middle class to have access to a foreign currency account. And if you're in Chile today, you go to Santander and you're a developer, you won't get access to a USD account. You'll have to open a Delaware company or go to Puerto Rico, I don't know what. Now, I don't want to be paid in Chilean pesos. My customers are in the UK or in Berlin, I don't know. I'm a designer and I want my USD, and I'll convert them as and when needed to pay for my utilities, internet, et cetera, and that is massive today.
Awesome. Well, listen, I had a ton more questions, but I think that we've opened up so many good topics right now on this panel. We could probably, in each and every one of these topics, we could go on for another hour. But let's, first I want to just do a round of predictions and then open it up to questions for any time we have left. But let's just go down the line, and what is your prediction for the next 5 to 10 years on payments in retail? And we'll start with you, Matteo.
So I think some of the biggest changes are going to come between the overlap between payments and identity. That's going to be one of the main challenges that we will have to face. Like, we had regulations coming through in Europe with PSD2 and NSCA that has introduced friction also for good customers. And now we have to go more into a path where we are still able to assess the identity of a user and make it frictionless. And I think this is where there is going to be a lot of innovation, and where merchants will have to focus together with the partners and the whole ecosystem. And throughout any type of sales channel or payment methods, that is going to be a key component, especially as we go more into a world where artificial intelligence is going to be much more prevalent and pervasive in disrupting a lot of aspects of our life, including identity. And how do we still ensure that there is that trust between the parts that can help us to fulfill a payment?
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. Identity is the new money, exactly. Mm-hmm. And Zach?
I think kind of follows on a little bit from what we're talking about with the crypto side, and certainly with open banking, and it's that kind of customer journey. I think over the next couple of years, what we're going to see is kind of the speed for customer to purchase, right? We see it with Apple Pay, we see it with Shop Pay. I think that will just become the kind of next generation of how customers pay. The quicker somebody can get their money to the end retailer and then receive their product is always going to be key. So looking at nuances there, making sure everything is physically available at all times.
Awesome.
I think for me, my future view actually goes a little bit beyond payments as well. It's the battle for screen time. And I think that's at play across our industry and more broadly as a whole. You know, back in 2014, 15, 14% of transactions leverage your phone. Now it's almost 60%. And that is only going in one direction. I was in the airport terminal yesterday. I looked up. There's a few dozen people there waiting for the flight. There was one person not looking at their phone. That's, and it is without a doubt, those that win will be leveraging that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Are we moving to wallet first, or like a super app type, you think?
Well, if we all had a crystal ball, we'd love to know the answer to that. But yeah, I think any players that come in and can bring that all together, and certainly, those in the industry, so the big players as well, deciding where to play, working and partnering with those. I think that's where we'll win.
Awesome. Daniel.
Well, as I say, I think, there's, following on from Andrew's point, there is going to be a collapse of siloed views of e-commerce and physical retail. There will be commerce, and most of that, or a significant part of that, will be via mobile enablement, and you will be physically located, geolocated, identified, and that generally will be a good thing for fraud and usability, etc. And it will also be very, very good for things, as I say, like transparency of service levels, transparency of supply chains, etc. So I think there's going to be a huge wave of digitization still to go.
Awesome. Great. Michael.
Yeah, maybe two predictions. So 5 to 10 years. So I think in the next 5 years, I think we'll see a big decluttering of the checkout. I don't think we need 100 and 200 different alternative payment methods in the world. There are some that are certainly vertical specific, which will remain, but the predominant retail checkout experience, I think you'll have credit cards because there's loyalty. I think you'll have some form of open banking or account-to-account payment, and I think you'll probably have buy now, pay later or embedded finance, right? Whether that's buy now, pay later or installments or something else. And then I think if we move 10 years in the future and really following on from what a lot of guys have been saying, I don't think there'll be a checkout. I think your payment method and your billing address and your delivery address will just be known. So by the time you've added things into the basket, there's no checkout experience. It just goes through seamlessly.
Awesome.
I
Erik?
agree with
Agree with everybody.
especially the omni-channel aspect. Where in 5 to 10 years, I will bank in crypto, in digital currencies. Basically, what we're doing is we are making sure digital currencies are used to be what they're meant to be, namely mediums of exchange. So yeah, I will be able to have my wallet on file at Amazon, like the card on file. I will be able to pay my Netflix subscription. This is where we're heading. Yeah, and we'll see more and more cross-border payments, B2B, done with digital currencies. Yeah, that's where I see it, and we will. It will be very complementary. So.
Right. So my prediction is that all roads lead to the wallet, and the wallet are going to have 3 types of rails in them. It's going to have the scheme rails, the banking rails, and the blockchain rails, and then ID will be sitting on top of it. So I got these ideas from you guys, but I think that's the wallet.
We should start a company.
And then they're going to embed commerce into that wallet. So all roads lead to the wallet with all 3 roads with ID and then commerce, yeah? Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, Georgina.
The audience actually via the app, so I can certainly answer
Great.
that one. So I'm not sure if you've got it to hand there.
I don't have it to hand. Could you read it out?
Yeah, sure. What is the panel's approach to businesses who are thinking of going global, and what strategies should a business adopt to meet the different demands from each region or country?
Okay, yeah, going global. Anyone have an opinion on that?
Happy to take that.
Go
I
for
think
it.
I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's just as important. I think localization of payment providers is definitely key, and I think that comes in things like familiarity. It's being able to spend in a currency that they are familiar with, and actually I think linking that to the delivery service which comes out of the box at the same time, right? I think it's all well and good being able to make a payment in your currency, but ultimately if that is then going to take 14 days or cost £25 to ship in the next 2 days, there is almost a negative effect of actually being able to take that currency, right? You should be playing where you know you can play successfully, and that's our view for successful e-commerce. And then it's doing the simple stuff right. It's having the right language, it's being able to work in the right way, and really working with those providers to make sure that you offer what you need when you need it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe just to reiterate a point from earlier as well, I don't think it's necessarily always the case that it's radically different. Yes, it is. You've got to think about the different dynamics at play, but don't underestimate, again, the basics that you need to get right in whatever market you're in and not get deflected. I think sometimes that's there, and that helps you wherever you're playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how many of you have worked in Asia? It's quite different there. Yeah. So yeah, I think they leapfrogged us in a way. They skipped the scheme rails. They skipped e-commerce and went straight to social commerce and super apps.
But also went QR codes, right? And
QR codes.
Pre-COVID, who in this room would ever think about scanning a QR code, right?
Yeah, we thought it would never work.
There. Yep.
Now we're all using QR codes.
Same in Latin America. Yeah.
LATAM. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go for it. Did you have a?
No, in terms of localization, that might not work for Wayfair, which will need fulfillment and logistics in markets where they're not yet present. But if you're in digital goods, for example, if you're integrating on crypto, you've got a global coverage, except sanctioned markets, of course. But basically, you've got a global currency. Anyone owning Bitcoin, USDC, Ethereum, Lightning, whatever, will be able to pay, whether they're in Rwanda to buy their video games or whether they're in Sweden, same thing. So it's a way to test markets as well and deploy and then decide, will I go for a local PSP or ask mine to extend, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I've got all my clients at Accenture, like big brand clients are doing digital, like Nike's doing digital tennis shoes. You know, Prada's doing digital handbags. I mean, there's a whole world of digital art and digital fashion that's opening up. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, we have one. Right.
Thanks very much. It's not a new question. It's just picking up on that concept then of that, you know, enabling, as a global merchant, enabling your payment services. So my colleague and I work for a global business already. We sell 130 million per annum online. And we do that hard thing where we enable different, separate payment suppliers in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in all sorts of places, 95 different places. I think the message I'm getting from people who want to sell services to us is that we should orchestrate that at a high level. Don't do all that hard work, because why would you as a merchant? I'm just interested from the panel's perspective on the way that as merchants you do that hard thing. Would you do it a different way and take all that pain away and just sit with one big system, one big supplier to do all the hard work for you? So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
An orchestration layer.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely a valuable proposition. You need to understand what problems you're solving. Going with a single provider, you put all your eggs in one basket, and you kind of expose yourself to a single point of failure. So if they go down, then you can't process payments. So it's really, you have to ensure that you have a solid partner that has a track record that can scale with you and the business. You need to make sure that as well you have a say in the roadmap. Because they might be part of the initial sales pitch and say, okay, we're going to be helping you provide the features that you need, but then you might end up being one of the many clients and your need might not be prioritized as much as you need. So I think, and then the cost, obviously, like you're going to have a cost per transaction that you're going to be paying versus the investment internally. So it is really a choice that you have to make depending on the size that you have, the complexity of the business, the growth that you see ahead. There is not a one-size-fits-all, but I think as an approach, it makes sense for any company to try to have one single layer, but then you need to understand what is the right flavor to do it. Do you do it in-house? Do you work with one partner? Do you have some kind of fallback scenario? But I think the approach itself is valuable. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I think we're out of time now. So I apologize, I can't see anything because there are big lights in my eyes. I think we're out of time, but I think that we can agree that this is an amazing panel, an incredible experience. I think that we should all, if there are any VCs out there that want to fund us, we're looking at starting a company together, because I'm not going to let them out of my sight after this. And thank you all for being a great audience.